Hey everybody, it's Mike. Good morning. Thanks for coming out this Thursday. I'm here in Chicago and we finally got some rain. It's been weather's been all over the place except rain, so it's kind of a gloomy day out there. But you know, it's nice to get in front of you guys again. It's been a while since I've done any. I haven't posted any videos on YouTube in a while because we've been working so hard on this Orderflows Toolbox, and I think it's going to help a lot of traders out there that want to add order flow to their trading, but at the same time don't necessarily want to use an order flow chart. So let me just make sure a couple of last second checks, making sure my mic is on. It looks like it's on. You can see my screen. That's good. Good morning, Luciano, and good morning, Elad. It's always exciting when you sort of, I don't say discover something new, but this is something that in the back of my mind, we've been working on for quite a while, and I really had to, sort of push my programmer to get this done because, I said, really what we want to do is we want to help traders, right? And the best way to do it is to put a tool together that's going to help them understand the order flow a lot better. So let's just sort of jump in here and get started. Hang on here. Of course, now my screen's not working. There we go. Whoops, there we go. So again, just a brief disclaimer, we're all adults, trading does involve risk, and, don't trade with money you can't afford to lose. So, when it comes to order flow, sometimes it feels like you're drowning in a sea of information, right? You look at a footprint chart and it can be overwhelming, especially for new traders. For experienced traders, it's easy peasy, but again, not everybody is at that level. And, coming to, order flow for the first time, I know myself, I was like, well, what the heck is this? And but once I sat down and understood it, then it made a lot of sense. But there's right brain people, there's left brain people, and people comprehend things a lot easier than others, and I understand that and respect that. That's why I think the Orderflows Toolbox is going to help a lot of traders, because you know there is frustration is sifting through endless footprint charts. People go, oh, okay, I can't make sense of the footprint, so I go to a heat map. Then they end up back at a bar chart. And worst of all is, you have this information overload and you end up missing opportunities and unclear signals. So really what you need is a tool that's going to not only simplify that chaos, but also enhance your trading style, giving you that edge over the competition, basically over the edge over the person sitting on the other side of the world that's also trading in the opposite direction. So just, most of you know who I am, but just really brief, my name is Michael Valtos, and, I've started on the CME trading floor when there was a floor. Eventually I left the trading floor when electronic trading started. I've worked for Dean Witter, EDF Man, Commerce Bank, Cargill, and JP Morgan before starting orderflows.com about a decade ago. Okay, so let's just sort of just jump into the meat and bones here. I don't need to fluff you up with some stories, things, because really what you want to see is, hey, can this help me in my trading? So, when you look at a footprint chart, for a lot of traders, that use my software, the Orderflows Trader software, I know it's helped a lot of traders, but I think it's, the best footprint chart out there in terms of, helping you analyze the data, right? We have all sorts of tools that really, help a trader hone in on what they want to look for, because there's certain parts of order flow that are great for identifying reversals. There's other parts of order flow that are great for identifying momentum. Okay, and if you don't know what to look for, then looking at a footprint chart is really useless. It's not like you're going to just put a footprint chart on your screen and all of a sudden it's going to magically come to you, right? You have to learn what it means in terms of, this volume coming in here or that volume coming in there, why is this more important than the other? And again, for a lot of traders, I see a comment in there from Vikram saying, yeah, order flow is very confusing and I need clarity. So in the past, right, if you're looking at a footprint chart now, in the past, it was just a simple, you know, volume on the bid, volume on the offer, and the point of control, the volume point of control, right? And the order flows trader, we've added a lot of the tools that I use in my own trading, such as, obviously imbalances is a common thing, but things like thin prints, imbalance reversals, multiple imbalances, even some delta tools. And there are certain alignments, so to speak, of, when you have a bar that has, a thin print or in two imbalances and an inverse, sorry, it says imbalance volume, it should be inverse volume imbalance in the bar, it can give some great signals, okay? But the problem was, in the past, you gotta, before Order Flows Trader came along, you had to actually look at the footprint and say, okay, yeah, I got a thin print coming in there. Yeah, I've got two buying imbalance. Yes, I've got an inverse volume imbalance coming in the bar. And, so you really had to be locked and loaded on your chart, looking at your chart to identify those situations when they occur. Because there's going to be times where you have just one of the three, right? Maybe you just got the thin print with two imbalances, but you don't have the inverse volume imbalance, right? Or maybe you have, um, the thin print and just an inverse volume imbalance, or you don't necessarily always have the combination that you're looking for. So what I asked my programmer to do is, hey, you know what, why don't we make a tool, right? Because in the past, right, you'd have to go in and, you would click the things you want to see with the Order Flows Trader that you'd want to highlight on your chart. Why don't we make a tool where it would just highlight when there is a thin print, when there is a volume imbalance, when there is an inverse volume imbalance, and just show that to me on the chart. Right, and another step that we took is being able to filter it for momentum or for swing highs or swing lows, okay? Because again, not every order flow tool that we've developed is meant to be used for the same purpose, meaning, there's some that are better for reversals, such as an imbalance reversal. It's got reversal in its name. That is something you'd be looking for, as a potential reversal. So that's something you'd want to use with a swing high or swing low, not necessarily with momentum, right? And and if a market is moving, a signal like an open point of control is something that you'd want to use in momentum, okay? Because look at this, right? This is the same setting, inverse volume imbalance, thin prints volume imbalance as this one, but there's some bad trades in there, right? Well, why? Because some of these aren't necessarily meant to be reversals. So if you can filter that out and say, hey, you know what? I want to use the momentum tools when there's momentum in the market. So you see like that losing trade that was there. I've added momentum, right? Whoops, it's gone now. Just as this one, right? Looks like it's a potential reversal, but it's really not, right? Because once you add in the reversal filter, then it's gone because these thin prints is something that's really meant to be used in momentum. So what are the tools that are in? And I'm going to go through it. I'm going to show you. I'm going to pull up NinjaTrader. We're going to go through, but this is the list of the tools, the order flow indicators that we've added into the Order Flows Toolbox. Yeah, now granted, swing filter is not based on order flow per se, but everything else is, the max delta thresholds, resting liquidity, prominent point of controls, POC waves, slingshot, the ratios, the sequencing, imbalance reversals, balance reloads, sweeps, weakness, momentum, strength, exhaustion prints, delta tails, divergence, breakouts, etc. So it's pretty robust. The only thing that limits you is your, I don't want to use the word imagination, but your thought process of what you like to look for in the order flow. And I've created this little cheat sheet, and to help traders understand, which tool is really meant for reversal, which one's meant for momentum, confirmation, support, or resistance. Now, obviously some could be everything. some really are just meant for, and some, can be used for, 2 or 3. Okay, so, just bear that in mind, because um, I did get this email yesterday from one of our early users, and he had both the swing filter and momentum, right? That's why I have this spreadsheet which is going out, because because remember, right, if you have a swing filter, right, you're looking for a swing high or swing low for a reversal, right? So and then if you're trying to find something that's got momentum behind it, well, it's just not going to work, because they work opposite each other. But this should help a lot of traders out. Like if you're looking at something like the POC wave, really, what you want to use it for. Prominent point of control can be used in a lot of different things. The retail suck. Now, the primary use, I have the X here, so you can see, how I predominantly use them in seeing them in the order flow, right? I would look for reversals. Sorry, drink some water. So for example, if I'm looking at a retail suck, ideally I want to use that with a swing filter, because that would be a reversal sign. Whereas if it's a tool that uses momentum, like for example, extreme delta threshold or delta volume threshold, that's something that I would use with the momentum filter. Okay, so that should help you guys out a bit in sort of putting together your own trading strategies. Now, another thing that we've added onto this is the multi-timeframe chart capabilities. So it's going to allow you to analyze different timeframes or chart types. So say you're trading, a 1-minute chart, but you want to be aware of, like the example I says, you want to see thin prints that held on a 5-minute chart on your 1-minute chart, you can. So basically you see higher time frame order flow on your lower time frame chart. And, some people like to look at stacked imbalances that have held over, 15 minutes. They don't happen that often during the normal trading day, but they want to be alerted to it if something like that's holding, because they don't normally look at a 15-minute chart. So there's a lot of capabilities that you can do. So I'm gonna go to the charts here in a second, but I want to go through a couple of questions. Let me see here. So where is it here? Hey, this question is this going to be recorded? This is a live webinar, not a pre-recorded one. And also this will be recorded. I'll send you the replay later. Vikram says, yeah, order flow is confusing and I need clarity. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Aaron, I did see your email. I'm glad you're here, because I was going to answer it, but since you're here, I could answer that right now. He says, will the order flow toolbox require the same resources as order flow software? My current data download is not great, even though my hardware, CPU, RAM, Wi-Fi are all good. Well, it runs on NinjaTrader, right? It's a NinjaTrader add-on. I don't know where you're getting your data from, but I've got data coming in. Mine is a CQG feed as well. I know you mentioned that yours was, but it's coming from NinjaTrader brokerage directly. I don't have any issues with it, so I'm not sure where your data exactly is coming from. That's causing that problem. And all my users that trade through NinjaTrader brokerage, they also using the same data feed, I believe, as well. And they don't really report any issues. Because if you get a data feed from like Kinetic, that would be a data feed, not a trading feed. I mean, you could get a data feed from Kinetic or IQ feed through NinjaTrader, but you still got to enter your trades through a connection. That's a trading connection. Okay, Juan, it's a holiday in your country. Yeah, that's a holiday for me. My kids started school yesterday. Finally, they're out of the house. Yeah, I'll look for your question there. You said I'll send you the same question that I sent via email. But yeah, Aaron, sort of just get back to that. Just again, it's data is. I'm glad you sort of brought this up, because data is really the data feed is a very important aspect of trading, because if you're slow, right, you know the saying, you snooze, you lose. If your data feed isn't good, you know, it costs money basically, you know, money and missed opportunities and lost trades and executions. So yeah, you want to make sure you have a good connection. But again, you know, this software runs on NinjaTrader 8, and you know, I've got a few NinjaTrader 8s running. You know, I've got my main trading system, a testing system, a laptop, and they're all fine. You know, in terms, you know, this one's an i9, my other one's an i7. I think my laptop's an i5, and you know, with Kinetic, it seems stable. Okay, Navi asks, with NQ dancing up and down, how can momentum charts help? Well, yeah, I'll take a look at that in a moment. Will you share the cheat sheet? Yeah, you know, I mean, for any user, I'll be sending it out. And for users of Orderflows Trader, I know I've been sort of promising you that for the last week, but I'm going to be sending that out later for Orderflows Traders users. Jacob asks about show ES on an 8 range. So I'm going to make a note here, show NQ momentum and 8 range ES. Okay. And Michael, can you run multiple indicators at the same time, say one for reversals, one for, yep, you can. You could, I'll show you that. Well, let me just get my chart up here then. Okay, it might be a little bit easier than looking at a blank screen. Aaron, I have to use Tradeovate or prop firm. Okay, then in that case, just get Kinetic data feed. Luciano asks, I sent an email about this. Could you let me know if I should drop the Delta Scalper? No, and use a toolbox, which I bought, spot trading opportunities on different markets. Well, no, because actually the Delta Scalper, the what goes into it, you can't do with the toolbox anyway, right? So some of the individual indicators that we have out there is different. It's not tools that we've already built into the Orderflows Trader, so it's not going to be in the toolbox. Okay. Sound alerts, I believe there's sound alerts in there. Okay. All right. Would you advise automated trading using these indicators? Yeah, of course. Okay. All right. Let's go. Anyway, let's see. There's a couple other questions there. Markets are live now. Does the combined signals produce plots that you can automate to trade? Yeah. See. So this is, what is this? Well, this is ultra bonds. And this one's just a simple one. So when you add it to your chart, okay, you can see, let me get the crosshairs up here. Yeah, in the top corner, top left-hand corner, you can see, right, this is just momentum strength, point of control level 1, level 2, okay? For, this was this ultra bonds, again, you know, this is today, obviously we had that big drop. This is yesterday, going up into the number, then after the number. But you can see it plots here. So just really quick, to address a question that Michael had, can you have more than one instance running? Well, yeah, you can. So for example, if you want to, okay, we'll just throw another one up here really quick. Something that would be for maybe a reversal. Okay, so we'll just do swing filter of 5 and just really quick, we'll just make it a bullish or bearish ratio. But if you're going to add more than one instance of it, you're probably going to want to change the plot signals, okay? Because the defaults are blue and red, blue for bullish, red for bearish. So, you know, I'll just make it green. And, you know, what's not a conflicting color? Magenta, red and magenta kind of look alike. It's always hard with this, but I know. I'll just make it, whoops, not orange. Let's make it gold. Let's see. And of course, what happened there? Try it again here. Refresh my screen. And NinjaTrader does this every once in a while. Bear with me. I know what's going on. It's my license. It's the license server is down. Gotta love these live webinars. Make sure I'm connected to the internet properly. Hang on here. Yeah. Okay. Should be on now here. Let me just take that off and just re-add it on. No, I know what's going on. I know there's an issue, the license server, because I could see it. I got a message came up on my phone. Okay, add new on here. Gonna make it swing filter. Whoops. And the other one is going to be ratios. Come on. Yeah, I apologize for that. That's yeah, I know it's the server is having some issues, but I'll take a look at some question here. While waiting for that server reboot. Okay, so if you did automate, where would you put stops and targets? Can they be automated as well? Well, of course, you know, any sort of automation tool, you can put targets. I can't say, oh, it's got to be this amount, because it depends on you as a trader, right? What your take profit is, what your target is. I mean, you can test it to find what you're comfortable with. But again, you know, every trader trades different, Thomas. So it's not like, you know, Mike says it has to be in this market, it has to be this amount of ticks or for a stop or take profit. Will you ever design your Delta Scalper, Orderflow Toolbox, or TradingView, or any other charting software for those who don't use NinjaTrader? You know, Noah, that's a good question. It is available. Well, not Delta Scalper is in the works for a web-based platform. Go Charting. We do have the Orderflows Trader on there, but not the Toolbox. The Toolbox is still new. So we're going to see how it goes with the Orderflows Trader before we add the Toolbox on Go Charting. What happens, basically, Reggie asks, what happens when I die? Yeah, it's we don't have the contingency plans in for that yet, like who's going to carry it on. But you know, my programmer does his stuff, I do my stuff, and you know, we sort of work together on it. Does this indicator work with tick replay? Yes, it does. It does require tick replay because it's reading the information off of the order flow, right? Which you're going to need the tick replay for. So like the information that you see coming in off of the the footprint chart, right, it's being read in the background by the Orderflows Toolbox, right? But then it's combining everything, because like right now, it's like on this chart, okay, I have my footprint, right? You can see here, Orderflows Trader, as well as the toolbox on it. This one is showing me exhaustion prints, momentum strength, and Orderflow ratios. Okay, so that's what you see plotted here, 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 here. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Just seeing what's going on with this thing. Let me try it on a new chart here. Open up. Okay. I don't want second balance. Do this one. Rashawn says, which PC do I use for trading? Here. Show you. Well, it's a Dell XPS, you see there, but you know, I'm just going to show you the information there, but this one's an older one. I hate this Windows, but this is i7. It's 32 gig RAM. Well, all I use this one for is just trading and these presentations and recordings. I don't do anything else with it. Oh, brother. Anyway, I've sent a message out to my programmer to check the license server on why it's not, what's going on. You know, the host for the license servers, sometimes they do their updates and it skips a beat on our stuff. But anyway, let me get back to the presentation here. That might end up cutting it short. Yeah, my whole goal was to show you guys a bunch of charts and show you sort of the capabilities of it. And I apologize for this. Let me see here if I. Let's just change this one here because this one's exhaustion prints, right, with ratios. Okay, so here, okay, now we're back here. That's what I hate sometimes about these things like the license servers is they have hiccups. So you see here now I've changed this to momentum strength and just the ratios, right? It's sitting on the footprint chart. So if you were to add another instance of this, getting back to Michael's question, say I want to now use something with a swing filter. I'm trying to think what would be a good one to use here because I already got exhaustion. No, I've got ratios there. So, you know, I'll make this swing filter with exhaustion prints, right? So I'm going to look for reversals, but I'm not going to just limit it to a ratio of a certain amount of 9. You know, I'll make it 25 just so it's a little bit easier. But if you're going to use something that's opposite, say a reversal, You know, for bullish, I'll do green. For bearish, I'll do that gold color. So let's see if anything comes up. So you can see here, right? There's the gold. There's the gold. I mean, bond's not necessarily a good example, but you know, here's the gold. This one's got both here. That's why it's sort of this orange color. You know, maybe if I did a different market than bonds, you could probably see it a little bit better. So try euro currency. Okay, so here's the nice reversal off that low, right? But here's the momentum trade. Okay, so you know, right there's the bearish one. Now, the thing to keep in mind, so let's just sort of jump into it a little bit, is there is the trade entry signal, okay, which I have disabled for now. Trade entry signal means that, okay, so it's on the momentum, it's turned off, but it's on for this one I just added because by default it's enabled. Trade entry signal means the market has to move 2 ticks. Well, it has to move a certain amount of ticks over a certain amount of time, 1, 2 ticks over the next 2 bars. So that's why there's no signal given here, because this next bar, it didn't move. It only moved 1 tick over the next 2 bars, 1 tick lower than that low. That's basically the trade entry signal. All right, so let's just close this one chart down. Close this down. We'll just, let's see, go in here and, you know, this question about NQ, okay? And let's keep it as a candlestick chart instead of a footprint chart. But it did ask about 5 minutes. Okay, so this is a 5-minute NQ chart, okay? And we got a nice move going there. Okay, so, you know, NQ is a market that is volatile, right? It moves around a lot. You know, obviously, you know, on a day like today where we got numbers and even yesterday you get a lot of movement. So let's add the toolbox here. Okay, so you see it's down here, right? Toolbox. And you know, just sort of keep it simple. Now again, you know, it's a big runner day, so you know, all you want to do is just buy and go long. But we'll just keep it simple since you're asking about momentum. Again, this is a 5-minute chart. It's not a 1-minute chart. Maybe I should go down to a 1 minute. But we'll do this with open point of control, which is kind of a momentum signal. Okay. So here, all right, we're going down. You know, down, down, down. I don't have the momentum turned on yet, but you know, obviously today is, you know, a big runner day. You know, sometimes I see people like, oh yeah, this was so easy because it was a one-way market. I like to also look at days where, you know, it's a bit back and forth. You know, you can see down, coming down, going back up, right, going back down. Open point of control is not something you're going to see necessarily as a reversal sign, but if you wanted to look at a tool that, you know, can be both a reversal as well as momentum. Let's just take a look at, ratios. Just keep it simple. Ratios. Most of you guys are familiar with order flow ratios, okay, which is just, you know, ratio bounds high, ratio bounds low. So if it's above 30, it's price exhaustion. Below 0.69, that's price defense, okay? But I'm not, in this case, I'm not looking at it in terms of coming in at highs or lows. What I want to do is I'm going to filter it to come in at momentum, okay? So here we got ratios and momentum. So, you know, on the way down, on the way back up. Now, the thing is on longer term charts, right? I talk about the trade entry signal, right, where a market has to move a certain amount here. Where is it? Trade entry, 2 ticks over 2 bars. Okay. If I'm on a longer term chart like 5 minutes, I don't use that. I use it more for minute-based charts or faster moving charts. So for example, if I was on a 1-minute chart, okay, so this is 1 minute, and this one we got ratio with momentum strength. Okay, so obviously the momentum, bullish the entire day. You can't fight that momentum. Here it is during the night. Again, this is just that one signal of the bearish ratio. When you start adding in, something else like, for example, I don't know, price action divergence. Okay, again, I don't know how it's going to look on here. Okay, so bearish, bearish, some bullish ones, and then hold bullish here. It's a little bullish one there. Bearish here. Start catching that move up this morning. I think obviously during this session, any bullish sign is going to be well rewarded. There was a question about 8 range ES. Let's go ES and 8 range. Okay. So again, this is just using the same ones. I don't know what it's going to look like with the 8 range ratios and price action divergence. There's a signal there. There's one here, one there. There's one there. Yeah, this is yesterday here. And again, what you can do also, right? Like I said, with the multi-timeframe is, so I'm on an 8 range chart, but if say I was on an 8 range chart and I want to look at the signals that are generated from, a 2-minute chart. Again, I'm just going off the top of my head here, just to show you the capability. Okay, so you see it's calculating. So what it's doing is it's looking at a different time frame and putting it on the chart that that you trade. Why would you want to do it? Again, like I said, I'm just picking a 2-minute chart to put on there to overlay. I mean, you can do, if you want to do a 5 minute, again, say you want to do, so this is a range-based chart, right? If I wanted to do, say, a 5 minute, show me, let me take off that, so they say I just wanted to show me where, there was thin prints of 3 or less that held on the 5-minute chart. And what I'll do is I'll just draw it out until tested, just so I could get a more of a visual reference. And again, I notice I have trade entry signal turned on, but I'll disable that. Again, I don't know how many thin prints on 5-minute chart there are. So I'm just using 3, but we'll see. So here, okay, well, not bad. Okay, obviously during the night session, things are a lot slower, but this is not that bad. That's with the trade entry signal, I believe, turned on. Now, you'll notice, right, like here's the zone up here, but the signal comes in down here. It's because, it's using the 5-minute information. So actually the signal doesn't come in till down here because it's looking at it's analyzing it on a 5-minute basis. That's why the signal, this is like sort of where it would have started, counting, but the signal is not confirmed. Again, this is a range-based chart, not a time-based chart. If I was looking at a time-based chart, this would be all probably 1 bar, okay? That's why this signal is coming in here versus down here, is because it's on a longer time frame analysis, okay? And again, let's just go through some charts. So that's an 8-range chart. Again, if it's on a minute-based chart, again, what do I got? I just got thin prints on here on a 5-minute basis. But say I want to change that to, something else, sometimes an easy way when you just start playing around with this a lot, you get a little bit mixed up in here because there's a lot of choices in here that you could add. A simple thing that I do is I just remove it, add it again, start from scratch. I mean, again, you could go through, dig through all the ones and make sure you enable, disable everything. But that's why, it's nice that everything's written up there in the top corner so you can see what you have. So this is E-minis, 1 minute. Again, you could, if you've looked at order flow long enough, there's probably certain things that you know and like to use. So you just go in and add them, right? Inverse volume imbalance, momentum, okay. What else? Well, add a thin print again. I won't make it 1 though, I'll make it like 5. And volume imbalance, but instead of 3, this is multiple imbalance. It's not stacked imbalance, right? Volume imbalance, but it's enable multiple imbalances. And how many multiple imbalances in a bar? Call it 2. Okay. Just 2 imbalances, not stacked on necessarily. They can be stacked on each other, but even if they're spread out a little bit. Okay, so again, what do I got here? I've got inverse volume imbalance, momentum strength, thin prints, volume imbalance. Okay, so nothing going on there. Sometimes you'll get like no signal. You'll see like nothing come up. Okay, and it could be maybe you might have something enabled that you didn't know. That's why I said sometimes it's a little bit easier to start from scratch, right? Where I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes people say they've got all these tools, right? And they want, I want to add this, and everything all at once. Well, you got to understand this is a toolbox, right? So you're taking different pieces and adding them together. So if I were to add, all these things, right? For sure, I'm not going to get anything, right? Because there's just too much going on. It would have to be like in this case, who knows? Maybe there might be a signal, but I'm looking for volume imbalance with a thin print, with momentum strength, with inverse volume imbalance, with a delta tail, with a buying and selling tail, with a delta divergence, with an aligned point of control, with accumulation distribution, right? You're just not going to necessarily get all that, all at once, right? And that's just how it is, because combining too much, what's a good way to describe it? When you add too many things all at once, you're really narrowing it down as to what you can find. So for example here, right, this is just simple momentum strength and prominent point of control level 1, level 2. Okay, and again, we had that big down day, nothing else is going on right now, but you can see like yesterday, oops, here, right? Yesterday, nice move up, nice move down. It's not about adding every single thing, on there all at once, right? It's about adding things that help make sense. Maybe, what do I got? Point of controls. Maybe I want to, see these in not necessarily, not, like well, this one's also got the momentum strength turned on. If I want to see it with, well, again, you're not going to have an open point of control with a prominent point of control. Those would work against each other. But let me just find something. Maybe with a volume decline. Okay, so you see not, just the one there. By adding more, sometimes you just, the combination of that actually happening becomes less. It's one thing to look at, a footprint and see that, oh, you know what, I've got this, 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 and this in this one bar, that's an automatic buy. Well, yeah, but the chance of that happening could be quite slim, so for example, if, again, but that's a 5-minute chart, right? If I were to go down to, what was, a 1-minute chart, maybe I'll get different signals, okay, because it's a little bit faster, so I can get some signals like you're seeing here today on this. This is euro currency. Yesterday, but then yesterday there was no signals in that. That's just because I've added an extra layer, an extra filter that it's probably just not, it doesn't occur that much. You probably don't get volume decline very often with a prominent point of control. Okay, maybe, then you can start looking at things like, maybe some delta clues. We'll call it, well, we'll use the extreme delta threshold, but we'll lower the threshold down to 80. Okay. Okay, so you see there's some signals here, a nice move here. People say, well, this one was failing. Well, yeah, okay, it stopped out. Some decent moves there. I don't know about today. I'm not going to say, yeah, you could have done that, but you're getting some decent movement. So it's about finding the combination that works for you, that has enough opportunities for you in a trading day. Okay, so for example, if I know a lot of traders, so I'm on the 1-minute chart. Okay, let me just clean this stuff up here. So take off extreme delta, take off everything, momentum strength, prominent point of controls. Okay, trade entry. Okay, and basic one, stacked imbalances. When I build stuff out, right, I like to start at a basic premise. Okay, stacked imbalance. Okay. Okay, stacked imbalance here, stacked buying imbalance here, stacked buying imbalance here, stacked buying imbalance here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I will disable the trade entry signal for now. So it's going to show me right on the bar that has a stacked buying imbalance here, 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 here. Okay. Then that's where I go, right? I start with one, and then I start adding the pieces that I think will have a good effect on the market. Okay, so for example, right, if I'm looking at this market and I see, well, let me close this down. I had a stack buying imbalance here that kind of went nowhere. I had one here that, again, kind of went nowhere. This one, okay. This one for sure. This one for sure. Well, what's the difference? This one's coming in at a low. This one's coming in, a bar off the low. This one's, I would not call this a swing low. This one's coming in a bit of momentum. The market's moving. So, stacked imbalances where the market's moving is probably something I want to start focusing on. Okay, so then that's how you start adding in the layers, like the pieces that will help you determine which way the market's going. So you can throw in first filter and just put this over here of momentum. Okay, so it took out those 2 bad trades there. Okay, now it leaves me with these 2. Is this good enough to be a trading setup? Again, I'm not talking about that one, but then you start doing the eye test. You know what? Hey, this is not too bad. Stacked momentum, or sorry, stacked imbalance with momentum. Okay, Simple, right? That's just the basic one of order flow. But again, I would like to have caught this move. Maybe there's something in the order flow that took place there. I can see, what happened in that move. That's order flow related that maybe I could build something around. And then I could look at, okay, well, at the extreme delta threshold, I left the momentum on, right? So extreme delta threshold, yeah, I caught a lot of that move. Again, it's set to 80, which is quite liberal. Here, maybe with the extreme delta volume threshold, I could add that on there. Okay, a little bit better. It's removed a couple of those signals. Then maybe you want to sort of give it a boost and say, on one that have open point of controls. Okay. So, okay, so now that you have your idea, then you can walk it forward. Look, how is it doing? I like always check how it does overnight as well as during the day. So not too bad. So again, there's a lot. I could go through all sorts of examples here, but I don't want to keep you on all morning. Because it just really is. It's a great tool, especially if like I know there's a lot of you guys out there. I'm a bit like this. I'm a bit of a what you call a tinkerer. We like to tinker around with the tools and see what we can squeeze out of the market. You can't see it here on my desk, but I've got combinations that I like, and it's something that I think many traders will get a lot of value out of, because at the end of the day, it's about finding what works for you. So again, if you're interested, I think it's a great tool for everyone. It's the I'm gonna put it in the chat here, but what you gotta do is you gotta go to this Orderflows Toolbox, orderflows.com/toolbox. Let's put it in the chat, orderflows.com/toolbox. Okay, this is the page here. Let's click on it. It's in the chat there. And again, I wanted to put all sorts of charts on here, but I could make a whole page full of these things. We do have a special for this launch, for this webinar. Regular price is going to be $14.99. I'll be honest, my programmer was against me releasing this for our own various reasons, because it's a tool that we use for our own trading as well as our own testing and stuff. But finally finagled him to do it. I think that's why it sort of took a while to get this released. But normal price is going to be $14.99. You can get it now for $9.99. That's $500 off. People are going to say that's a lot of money. It's not really. Indicators go from anywhere between $300 to $500 for one single indicator. This is like a whole. You saw it's a whole toolbox, right? You got all those. You've got all of these tools, and you can combine them however you want. Right? So really, the only thing that's holding you back is your own thought process on, what, I like to look at prominent point of controls that occur with order flow ratios, okay, things like that, and just make it much more streamlined, right? So you could either pay through Stripe or through PayPal right there. And for order flows trader, right, we do weekly calls, and if you get this software, the Orderflows Toolbox, you're going to be invited to those calls, because again, it's all about sharing the information, right? I mean, people say, well, you get all that for free on YouTube. You can't. What I talk about on these calls is my own analysis stuff, and sometimes things that people share with me that they're fine with me sharing with the group. And not only that, but for the toolbox, I'm going to do bi-weekly sessions as well, just specific to the toolbox, not for anybody else. and so not for the Orderflows trader, because the toolbox is a specialized tool in the sense that be sharing. So I always say, hey, you know what, on gold on a 1-minute chart, you could use momentum, thin prints, volume imbalance, and inverse imbalance, and it's going to just help you get further and further ahead. Now, the first meeting for that's probably not going to start till September, okay, like the first week of September after Labor Day, but we're going to be doing them bi-weekly, okay? And the difference between that call and the call for Orderflows Trader, again, is this one is specific to the Orderflows Toolbox. You'll also be invited to the weekly Orderflows Trader calls where we talk about the footprint and things that we're looking for in the footprint, but this one is specific to the toolbox, right? Because I think it's a great tool. Sometimes people are like, oh, I can't share with what I know with the market, because it's like they'll come up to me, Mike, I found it, I discovered the Holy Grail. And I'm a big believer in, okay, you sit in your office, home office, so to speak, like me. I sit in a home office, and if I say I discover, so for like Orderflow, let's pull up an Orderflow chart here really quick. Right, if I'm looking at the footprint, right, and I see something occurring, at a low over and over and over and over. Well, why is that? Because I'm looking at the order flow. What it is, it's the buying and selling of the participants that are trading. Whereas, sometimes people will be like, oh, Mike, I got this system is based off of these different indicators, moving averages, etc. And then like 6 months later, I'm like, how's it doing? Well, it's not working anymore because it was curve fitted. Whereas with order flow is all the traders, what they're doing in the market. And that's behavior as opposed to sort of price action. That's why, if you're following order flow, you're really following what the big traders are doing. Because at the end of the day, it's the big traders that are moving the market. Okay. Whereas if you're just watching price, if you watch price long enough and you watch order flow long enough, price can move on very little flow, so to speak. If you look at the NASDAQ, it can jump around without trading any price for, 3-4 ticks sometimes. So that's why with order flow, I think it's in everybody's best interest to share, what's working, because the more people behind it, sort of the better it works. I hate to call it a self-fulfilling prophecy, but if the more people are seeing what you're seeing and are going in on it, or for whatever reason, again, I could be looking at this and say, oh, I think this market is going up because thin print over 2 consecutive bars or something like that. Okay, and you see the market went up, but I know that is because of the way the market is trading in the two-way auction, right? With a thin print, this meaning there's just not enough two-way flow, right? That it's dominated one way or the other. And I know that if the market is dominated by buyers, aggressive buyers, it's going to go up. Okay, but if you're just looking at bars by themselves, you don't understand the underlying aspect of the mechanics that's taking place in the markets. Okay, so that's why I am planning to do the weekly, or sorry, this one's going to be bi-weekly for now, which may move up to weekly as more and more traders get involved with the toolbox. Because again, it's not everybody trades ES on a 1-minute chart. People trade ES on an 8-minute chart, 8-range chart. Some people trade on a 30-second chart. Some people trade, even shorter than that, 30 seconds. Some people trade a 12-range chart. Some people trade a 3-minute. There's so many different, and that's just one market, right? There's so many different markets out there. It's about 40 that's worth trading. That for some people, they may not realize that, hey, what, maybe in another market, I should probably focus on that as opposed to this market that I'm trading. So for example, people laugh at me when I talk about the grains, but the grains do offer great trading opportunities. Okay, so let's just go here. That's the footprint, right? And honestly, for a lot of traders, they don't want to look at a footprint like this because it's like, oh, this is so fucking ugly, you know. Then this is a 5-minute chart. Here we are on a 1-minute chart. Okay, you can see there's decent signals here during the day. The day starts right here, 8:30. Okay, but again, you know, a move like this, 306.80 all the way up to 309.80. It's a $300 move right there. Okay, so for some traders, you know, that might be a better market. Maybe they're going to look at, again, ultra bonds, I tried showing earlier. You know, maybe they're more you know, they're more willing to trade ultra bonds, which move a lot more. Okay, this move here from, you know, whatever this is, you know, 131.05, you know, down to 25. You know, that's 12 points, 12 ticks. You know, a little scalp here, a little scalp here. So again, you know, there's so many different markets that it's not like it's going to be saturated, and I don't think so. You know, the markets are so robust that, you know, us as retail traders, we're nothing to the markets. We're ants. You know, we just get our 2, 3, 4, 5 lots get in the way of what the big traders are doing actually. So anyway, I'm going to take a look at some questions here. Looks like a very complex system, too many choices. Okay, fine. You know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. Simple. You know, I can't convince you, Chris, if you think it's too complex. Honestly, I think it's very simple to use. If I purchase order flow for NT, can I use it on Go charting too? No, William, it's 2 different platforms, and it's just not the same. But the difference with Go charting is a monthly subscription, and NinjaTrader is not. Now, Go charting, I'm going to be doing some announcements on that next week, because we're just really sort of in the beta stages of the release for Go charting. But it's just a footprint right now, but Delta Scalper will be getting on there later. Will the toolbox work with the Ninja Cater's order flow that you designed? I didn't design the Ninja Cater order flow, but I think I have it on here actually. Let me open up a new chart, because the important thing is you need tick replay. Okay, I think like the IES, this is, well, first I'll use the native, where is it here? I don't even know what to call it on here. Oh, it's the volumetric chart. This is the Ninja Trader one, but let me just, okay, so this is the Ninja Trader one, which kind of basic. Let's add the toolbox on there. And just keep it simple. We'll just look for exhaustion prints. If there are any. Okay. Yeah, so again, it's showing it. It's hard to see because it's black, but you can sort of see it coming in here. Now, Ninja, this is the Ninja Trader one. Okay, and I know they use a slightly different calculation than we use. We use the actual bid ask data. They use up and down tick. But I think your question also was the Ninja Cater's one. So let me put on the Ninja Cater one. So I think well, let me just go back to a bar chart here. Because the Ninja Cater's one footprint. Okay. I hate this. I hate a red screen. I hate a black screen. And let me just change this to a white candlestick. Okay, it's better on my eyes. I gotta add the indicator back on, but toolbox. Okay, and let's do exhaustion prints, IES. What's there? It's been called Orderflow sequence tracker. It's the old NOFT. I forgot if theirs requires tick replay or not. It still says calculating there. No, you know what? Because I got a template on there. I would have to go back to an old template, not this template. So for example, if I were to load ES, none, okay, then I add theirs. Again, I'm only showing this because there's this question about it. It's weird. I don't know why their footprint's not showing up here anymore. Oh, that's the sequence tracker. What is this called? Is it really called that? MUAP, volume at price, Workflow Pro, Workflow Pro. Try this one. Yeah, I don't know why the Ninjacator's order flow chart is not showing up here. So, okay, I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Okay, it's got to have tick replay off. So no, that's why it's not showing up, because I got to have tick replay on for the toolbox. Okay. Simon asked, so I see some new tools in this which are not in the 32 of the Orderflows Trader. Let's go back to the list here. Orderflows, Simon, you should be on Orderflows Trader 7, okay? And all these are in Orderflows Trader 7. The one that's not, I think, well, I know the multi-timeframe one is not. And you know, the multi-timeframe one, we can't do that on a footprint chart. Well, we could, but it's going to be a lot of extra computing. It's not worth it. It's better to put it on the toolbox than put it on the actual footprint chart. Is the momentum is not on here as well. So we have swing filter, we don't have momentum. So this one here, the from time frame, which is, you know, allow you to look at, you know, tick, volume, range, second, minute chart of different values and put it on your existing chart. That is not part of Orderflows Trader. The footprint and the momentum strength is not yet. Juan says, had to go. Just need to receive the internals control. Okay, yeah, I'll look for your email about it. Assume you can combine, or Aaron asks, assume you can combine pulse and or turn with toolbox. Yeah, that's a good question. So for example, if you have a tool like the pulse, again, I'll change these to green, and let's make it deep pink instead of gold. I didn't like the gold. Again, what settings do I got here? Strength 0. Let's make it strength 1. And delta. I'll take off long bars. Okay. I should pulse, probably not. What did I get on there? Pulse. Let me try a different market here. Okay, so like here's pulse signals here, here. The one right here, the green, the magenta. So yeah, you could use it in combination, but what you can't do is you can't combine the pulse with the toolbox, but you can use them both on the same chart. Aaron asks, Jacob, I see your question there about the license. I'll get to that after we're done here. Why did you switch from range to minute charts? Years ago, I used to use range charts. Markets weren't as volatile as they are now. That's why. Jama asks, on the period type, what's the difference between chart and minute selection? On the period type, okay, so chart, as opposed to any of these, chart being at 0 would be the actual chart that's on your screen. If you want, a different underlying, it's like say, you want to see signals from a 30-second chart on your 1 minute, you would do that. Or say, what do I got here? It's euro currency, so I don't know, 100 tick chart on a euro currency, right? So this is a 1 minute chart, but it's going to show me the signals, but on my 1 minute chart based off of a 100 tick chart. Mostly, Reggie asks, are these tools in the Orderflows Trader 7? Yeah, they are. Again, like I said, except for the multi-time frame and momentum, but you can't combine them the way that you're doing it here, right? If you're looking at footprint, then you have to say, okay, yeah, I see this, this, and this, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5 things happening in the bar that would make me want to get long, right? So now, like here, I see, okay, I've got a bar that's got exhaustion print, imbalance, reversal, a couple of thin prints, and it's got a delta threshold. So what I can do is take that off here, and I wanted to highlight because I know I've seen this happen so many times. Maybe this is a good signal. So what I'll do is I'll change this to keep it at 9, and inverse. Well, it's got a delta threshold over 95%. It's got an imbalance reversal, and it's got thin prints, 2 of them in here. Okay. I'll take this off now just to show you, make sure everything else is right. Turn off the swing filter for now. So boom, right? It's showing me that instance right here of everything I just combined on it. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else, but this is it. This is the signal based off of thin prints, imbalance reversal, delta threshold, and exhaustion print, all wrapped up in one bar, giving you one signal. Aaron says, it will not work as you're trying to align too many confluences at the same time. Um, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, but simply because one instance of order flow can happen, right? But what is momentum, right? Well, it's aggressive trading taking place. Okay, so I know if I have a reversal signal with momentum, it's not like I'm adding too many, but again, like I said, if this is just not something you believe in, that's fine. That's what makes trading trading. Not everybody agrees. If everybody agreed, markets wouldn't move, basically. It's just like uh, you go to YouTube videos. Oh, order flow is crap, doesn't work. Oh, bookmap is crap, it doesn't work. The dome, it doesn't work. It's only price that you gotta trade this. No, there's so many different ways to trade. You know, I know what works for me. I know it works for other traders, and that's why we developed this product, because a lot of traders have specifically asked for something like this over the years, and it's just now we've finally been able to put enough tools into it that makes it viable, as well as something that is useful to other traders. Do you need the order flow software for this toolbox to work? No, you don't. That's the beauty of it. You don't need the footprint chart. It's like a foot. We used to call this the OFT, which is the abbreviation for order flows trader, FPL, footprintless chart, right? Because you see me showing it to you on a chart with the footprint, but really the power is it's coming in off of regular charts just like this. You could use it with your existing chart. So if you're like me and you got 43-inch monitors, you got screen here, screen here, screen here, screen here, you could have a bunch of little charts going on with the setups that you like to use. uh, no, Reggie, it's not part of the Orderflows Trader software. It's separate from that. It's a completely different software. Okay, Aaron, you got it. Thanks. Um, yeah, Aaron, send me over, what markets you're interested in. Because yes, some basic setups for entry and continuation and exits. Yeah, because I'll send you some setups, but if it's not on a market that you look at, it's not going to be useful. But send me over some, a list of things that you look at in time frame. Can we use the footprint as well as the candlestick chart? Yes, Carol, you can. Can it be automated with markers? Yes, it should be able to. I haven't done it. I had to upgrade. I upgraded my my testing PC, and so I had to get all new license from Pablo for markers. Not license, but he had to update my machine ID, etc. But I want to make a video on that for you guys as well once I get that sorted out. What can help the tick charts be more stable and have less lag? Um, I'm not sure I understand your question. What can help the tick charts to be more stable? I think tick charts are generally pretty stable, and uh, again, it's one of those things where check your data connection. Um, do you have templates for the buyers of the toolbox? Well, we're going to be meeting um, bi-weekly, so I'll be sharing things. And again, Yolanda, if there's a market that you're interested in or that you trade, send me over, the market, the time frame, et cetera, and I can take a look, because it's one thing for me to put out a bunch of templates, but it's kind of pointless if like me to put out an ultra bond template for you if you don't trade ultra bonds, right? If you trade British pound, if you tell me, yeah, I trade British pound and on a 1-minute chart, what's a good template to use, then it's a lot easier. Okay. Uh, Thomas says this. No, it's the same computing power as a regular footprint. I haven't noticed anything different. Again, I have no issues running it. You saw me earlier. I had that issue with the license server. It was just down for a couple minutes, which is not the greatest example during a live webinar. But yeah, what time frames would be the best to use the toolbox? How can I use it with 10-minute, 15-minute, 1 hour? Well, although I don't really go out to 1 hour in order flow, but there are certain things that I like to look at in order flow on 10-minute, 15-minute charts. So I'll just change this to minute, 15, just really quick. I keep it simple. On longer time frames, I really keep it simple. I've always liked exhaustion prints. Sorry, whoops, this is the exhaustion print on longer time frames. So what I put in here, 15 minutes. Okay, I got the pulse on here. Get that off. Okay. Yeah, today so we had that big drop today, but sometimes when I see them coming in at like a swing high like this, it's a very powerful signal for me. There's a little swing high. But again, there's just so many different ways you can use it. How do I bring up the Orderflow chart on NinjaTrader? You'd have to go to the data series. If you have the paid version of NinjaTrader, you'd go and change the chart type to volumetric. Okay. But I'm not going to do that now. Let's keep it on my normal minute chart. So anyway, guys, I won't keep you guys on any longer. I think I've gone through all the questions. Again, thanks for coming out here. For those of you guys that bought it, I'm gonna get you guys sorted out, straight away right after this call. And again, I think it's a great tool for everybody to use. Again, is it for everybody? No. You have to believe in order flow and understand what you're looking at. I mean, there's people that despise order flow. Fine. That's not to say order flow is useless. I mean, those guys, oh, price action is the only way. Yeah, okay, fine. If that works for you, order flow works for a lot of traders, a lot of professional traders. So again, thanks for coming out here today, and I look forward to working with you guys and seeing you on our our biweekly meetings and sharing things that we've learned, what we find is working good. And again, the beauty of for those of you that have had my products, that we're always updating it, right? We're on Orderflows Trader version 7 already. Okay, and every time we come up with a new release, there's always new tools in there, and the same thing is going to be with the toolbox, right? Whatever is going into the Orderflows Trader is going to go into the toolbox, and vice versa. So maybe there's a way that you like to analyze order flow. Let me know. Is that something we could add to the toolbox? We'll do it. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and rest of your week. And again, thanks for coming out, and I'll get you guys sorted out. Bye-bye.